So we have been exploring how to manage the gap between the incubation of our God-inspired aspirations and divinely directed dreams and the actual tangible fruition of them. Last Sunday, today, and then in 2 Sundays, we are going to talk about this building. We're building, actually the revealing of the bridge over the gap, from getting from here to there. That's what we've been exploring. And I'm going to begin this Sunday with where we left off last week. We left off with the reading, and I want to go a little further into it. It's about bridging the gap. So last Sunday I shared a couple of passages from The Alchemist. It's a fable about following your dream. It was written in the late 80s by a Brazilian author. And it's all about this shepherd boy who had a dream. A really, really big dream, as many of us might have, which he reluctantly decides to pursue, reluctantly. And in that pursuit, he definitely has to bridge a gap, not just a gap, a chasm. Sometimes our dreams feel like it's like a huge jump to even think about it, never mind actually achieving that. So I ended last Sunday's talk with a passage in which the young shepherd had finally met the alchemist, someone he'd been looking for throughout the book, because he believes the alchemist will have the answers to his dream and how he can get to his dream. And so they've been having this conversation, and the boy is trying to decide if he should continue going after his dream. And at that point, it's looking pretty impossible, and it has gotten really difficult. Anyone ever felt that way? You had this dream that your heart wants to do, but it feels like so huge and enormous? Yeah. Well, here's the passage we ended with last week. Hopefully then this talk will speak to that for those who have that dream that feels impossible, but we know that nothing is impossible, right? We know it means I'm possible. That's old news, but it's always new news to believe that. So here's the passage on where we ended last week. My heart is afraid it will have to suffer, the boy told the alchemist one night as they looked up at the moonless sky. Tell your heart that the fear of suffering is worse than the suffering itself, and that no heart has ever suffered when it goes in search of its dreams, because every second of that search is a second encounter with God and with in eternity. Every second of the search, this is the boy now, every second of the search is an encounter with God. Oh! That was just my former husband's name. Funny how that happens. Okay. Back to the boy. Okay, it's pretty fun. So, tell your heart that the fear of suffering is worse than suffering itself. So anyway, the boy tells his heart, every second of the search is an encounter with God, the boy told his heart. When I have truly been searching for my treasure, every day has been luminous, because I've known that every hour was an encounter with God. And I know that it is all part of my dream that I would find When I have been truly searching for my treasure, I've discovered things along the way I never could have thought of. Had I not had the courage to try the things that seemed impossible for a shepherd to achieve. And that's for a lot of us in our lives when we've stepped out, when we really stepped out into what looks like the impossible, the unknown, whatever you want to call it. It's the stuff we're not familiar with. So when we step out of our comfort zone, all of this incredible good flows in and through and as our life. Because we've had the courage to step, and it takes courage to step out. Now I want to read a bit more from that book, from that place, because it will take us to where our work is today. So here we go. So his heart was quiet for an entire afternoon that night. The boy slept deeply, and when he awoke, his heart began to tell him things that came from the soul of the world. And if you were here last week, we talked about intuition. And that's the voice. That's the voice that loves you. That's how you know the difference between all the voices that go on within us. Is the one that really loves you is the intuitive one. And it will not steer us wrong at all. So his heart began to tell him things that came from the soul of the world. It said that all people who are happy have God within them. Well, all people have God within them anyway. We are all gods, each and every one of us, because we're part of the whole. We're part of this infinite source of all that is. But anyway. And that happiness could be found in a grain of sand from the desert. Because a grain of sand is a moment of creation. Everyone on earth has a treasure that awaits him. His heart said, his heart is talking to him now. We, people's hearts, seldom say much about those treasures because people no longer want to go in search of them. We speak of them only to children. Later, we simply let life proceed in its own direction, toward its own fate. But unfortunately, very few follow the path that has been laid out before them. And the path, that's the path to the personal legends. That's the author's term for our God-inspired dreams and to happiness. Most people see the world as a threatening place. And because they do, the world then becomes a threatening place. So their hearts, speak more and more softly. This is still from the book. We never stop speaking out, but we begin to hope that our words won't be heard. We don't want people to suffer because they don't follow their hearts. Why don't people follow their hearts? Tell them. Why don't people's hearts tell them to continue to follow the dream, the boy asked the alchemist. Because that's what makes the heart suffer most. And hearts don't like to suffer. From then on, the boy understood his heart. He asked it, please, never stop speaking to him. He asked that when he wandered far away from his dream, his heart would press him and sound the alarm. The boy swore that every time that he heard that alarm, he would heed its message. That night, he told all of this to the alchemist, and the alchemist understood that the boy's heart had returned to the soul of the world. So what do I do? The boy asked. And that's where we're leaving the story today. We'll return to it. The soul of the world, that's the infinite consciousness of all that is. And all that is pure, limitless potentiality and consciousness. It's everything we could ever desire. We are capable. In the desire, we are capable of manifesting it. And when we don't, we don't feel fulfilled. We don't feel true happiness. So today, we will mine some of the gold that was really in that story that I just read. Now, last week, we looked at 2 spiritual tools to keep the bridge. We talked about a bridge. This is us here, and this is our dream, and it doesn't look like a bridge in between. But as we said in our story last week, the rungs of that ladder appear as we take the steps. So the bridge itself reveals how we can get from here to there, but we have to trust if we don't see it. We were talking about Indiana Jones, a whole story in there. One of the tools was cultivating the open moment, which means to open the tiniest crack within us, to be willing to even contemplate our dreams, that which is calling us to step out and to move from standing in between, I can't have that dream, and all the reasons why. All the reasons why. And the actual experience of the dream by believing that it actually just might be possible. If we took our dream and believed it might actually be possible, instead of thinking this is great far off thing, I can't do that. No. I would say no. Because with God, all things are possible. With God, all things, can you say that after me? With God, all things are possible. And that is the truth. And now you have this God-inspired aspiration and divinely directed dream that we spoke about 2 weeks ago. Have it in your mind right now. Something you really, really, I don't care, big, small, whatever it is. Something you really want to manifest, you want to experience. And then repeat this after me. With God, this is possible.
With God, this is possible.
With God. And God is not, and I know I'm preaching to the choir here, God is not separate from us. We are all, we're not part of it, we are it. We are that substance, that creative energy, that force of life. We are it. And we need to own that, to truly recognize that. The second spiritual tool of last week was to listen to our intuition. Remember, that was the voice of love within us. The voice that really loves us. That's what we're defining, and I like that. But that's what we're defining intuition as, the voice that loves us. We have to learn to listen to it, to listen to it. These tools take you partially across the bridge, but it still may feel like you're hanging out in the gap, in between, that in-between stage. You know that when one door closes, another opens, but there's sometimes, it's not immediate. There's this, like in between. It's the same with this bridge that we're talking about, crossing over this huge chasm. It doesn't look like anything really is happening, but everything is happening in that gap. Everything is happening. And these tools, as I said, would take us partly across the bridge, but it still may feel that we're hanging out in the gap. And that's how the little shepherd boy, the one who was talking to the alchemist, felt. In the passage I just read, I do understand that it can be scary and even discouraging. And it's one of the reasons that holds us back from really stepping out. If we really choose to step out, even if it's something really small, like we haven't really left the house, like when the pandemic was happening. Just going out to the supermarket was a huge thing for some people. But there is so much waiting for us. And so perhaps one of the reasons we have not acquired our God-inspired dream and idea is because we didn't know what was on the other side of the bridge. And that can be a problem, an obstacle, an obstruction in front of you. And we don't know how to go around it, under it, through it. So there you are, hanging out in the gap of life. We just wait. And we just wait for something to come to us. But here's a spiritual tool for today. And it's the realization that the problem is never the problem. Problem is never the problem. This is a concept we have discussed at length here. So I'm hoping that you have the answer to this question. The problem is never the problem. Then what is the problem? The answer will always be, it's the way I'm thinking about what the problem is. The problem, it could be nothing, except a story we made up, and usually is, in our minds. And then we give it that energy. Really, this isn't the problem, but our belief that there is one that is. And I like to call it challenge. It is a big challenge to believe that what we are making up is not real. We must go through it. We must cross that bridge. Walking across the bridge to reach the achievement of our personal selves, our personal dreams. On page 456 in The Science of Mind, Ernest Holmes writes, "We must return the way we came. As little children who know that life is good and to be trusted, we are to approach our problems as though they were not. Approaching them in this manner, they will vanish." They will vanish. So all the stuff we think is a big problem, look back at our lives. When I look back at all the stuff I thought was the biggest problem or impossibility, and then took the chance anyway and stepped out, that bridge appeared. It appeared each step of the way till I crossed that huge chasm that didn't look like it had any solution. So the real issue for us, and today's spiritual tool for helping us reveal another leg of the bridge, is to see the problem, or the what we think is the impossibility, in a different light. A different light. That is what the conversation the little boy had with the alchemist, and what his heart told him. Always listen. The intelligence in our heart is so huge, and you know what? There's no ego in the intelligence of the heart. There's so much ego in our brain. It's like wired to set up all these limitations. The heart doesn't know limitations. The heart is open and wide, but we've closed it down. Some of us have. And I want to share with you today another story that speaks to what the story that we have been talking about with the alchemist and the shepherd. And this one I have told before, and we might have heard it in our youth if we went to a church, a Catholic church, about Goliath. You know, we might have heard this 100 times, but we'll put a little different spin on it today because it goes with this kind of what looks like the hugest obstacle we could ever face, and how we can face it. Long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, That is not the story. Okay, that sounds better than where I'm going to go. All right. The Israelites and the Philistines were fighting a war. How unusual. A messy war on a particular field of battle. And there was a Philistine by the name of Goliath of Gath, who was giant among the bunch of really big guys. I mean, he was really huge, right? Goliath. Twice a day at dawn and at dusk, Goliath would step out between the two armies and shout to the Israelites, "Do this war in a different way. One of you step forward and fight me to the death." And the people of the man who loses will become the slaves of the people of the man who wins. Every day he did this, twice a day. Most of you know the story of Goliath. What happens in the story? David, a shepherd boy, with his slingshot, slays the giant, right? But it is so much richer and so much deeper than that. Whenever Goliath would make these taunting offers to the Israelites and have them scatter, running off into the hills, because nobody wanted to fight this giant. Now Jesse had 4 sons, and the 3 eldest sons were soldiers. One day he sent his youngest son, David, to take some food to his brothers. He arrived at the front just in time to hear one of Goliath's rants. And when the terrified soldiers ran away, David ran with them. Sometime later, David is trying to find his scattered brothers. And in search of this, he hears the details of what's been going on here with this Goliath guy. He learns that at least twice a day for 40 days, Goliath has been making this proposition. So let's pause for a minute. 40. That always triggers something in me. 40, we know, is the completion of something. The absolute completion of transformation. In fact, the other person I mentioned before, I was married to for 40 years. So it was a biblical thing that happened. I had to leave. It was completion. It was transformation. Back to the story. King Saul really wants this war to be over. So to encourage one of his soldiers to step up, he sweetens the pot. He makes this really irresistible. He promises that whatever soldier fights Goliath would receive great wealth, exclusion from paying taxes, and the real sweet deal of it was they got to marry his daughter, the princess. Now, David thinks all of this sounds pretty good. And so, when he finally finds his brothers, he tells them about this. And how he would like to go for it. He would like to face Goliath. Not only would it help the Israelites, but what a sweet deal for him. All those things he would get. The reaction was, as we might expect, "Are you crazy? Have you seen this person? Have you seen the size of him?" The Goliath. And we sometimes refer to challenges as Goliath challenges because they're so big. And you, the brothers say, you're just a scrawny little shepherd. What are you going to do? You're not even a soldier. And there it is, right there, thinking that the problem is the problem, and granted, looks much bigger and very, very scary than we could ever imagine. And very much a problem with the consequences for the loser. So if you have a dream, if you have something that you truly want to experience in your life, no matter what it is, and you've taken those leaps of faith and stepped out as you walked somewhat across that bridge by cultivating that open moment, that slight willingness, that's huge, that slight, tiny willingness, and by listening to the voice that loves you. And here you are faced with Goliath. Well, what do? Here it is. Goliath, the big thing, is here. Quick, run to a safe place, retreat. You could do that. You absolutely could. But that is what makes the heart suffer the most. And our hearts don't like to suffer, as we just heard from the other shepherd with the alchemist. Remember, everyone on earth has a treasure that awaits him. Every one of us has a treasure, something beautiful, something wonderful that awaits us. But we have to go get it. That's the thing. The action part, so many people leave out, is that action, but we have to do something. We have to bridge the gap to experience it. So we can take a clue from David and change our perception of what we think is a problem. The problem is not the problem. In fact, it isn't even an obstacle. Instead, it is the way to our dreams. Every obstacle we come in contact with in our lives, when we overcome the obstacle, the greatest gift we could ever imagine unfolds for us. Our dream is right there. So he turned away from the entire attraction. He turned his attention away from all the problems completely and focused on right now the goal. And the goal was to slay Goliath. And we're taking this clue from David. He thought to himself, no, all these riches, no taxes, and the princess. This is what he focused on. He wasn't focusing on the Goliath. He was focusing on what he wanted to achieve. That's what he was focusing on. The rest had no attention, no focus within him. This is our work, too. This is our work. We stand midway between what we have vision for, possibly, as we did in January, and what it is we really want to experience on that bridge. We're halfway across. We're not there yet. Fortified with his dream in his heart and in his mind, David pressed forward, listened to the intuition not to put on all the armor. As the king had so strongly advised him, you've got to wear all this armor. He did not wear it. His intuition told him, you don't need those shields. You don't need that heavy armor in order to overcome this. He just picked up 5 smooth stones and put one in his sling. And with one perfect shot, he felled the giant. The obstacle was removed. The way was cleared. Not everybody in that camp had the same opportunity. But as we learned in The Alchemist, very few follow the path laid out for them. The path to their personal legends, their personal inspirations, and to happiness. Most people see the world as threatening. I'm reading this. And because they see the world as threatening, it becomes threatening. What we believe we are manifesting. It doesn't have to be this incredible dream if we're focused focused on the fear. The fear is what will continuously repeat itself in our lives, in every way, in every situation. So if you're ready to continue this journey, today we have 2 shepherd boys with 2 stories for us. We've heard them. To listen to your heart, which is your intuition, the soul of the world. To stand up and not see this obstacle, just the dream itself, and focus on that. Everything else is not important. The important thing is the dream, the God-inspired vision that is within each of us. To know that God is always with us. This loving energy is always supporting us and guiding us. There's no obstacles. We just make them up. We believe there are obstacles. And we don't acknowledge them. We acknowledge the dream. Focus on the dream. Remember nothing else. Focus on what you want to experience. Not all the stuff in between. Not all that stuff. And once again, remember, as the alchemist told the little boy, every second of our journey is a second with God. So let us remember that. If there's something we really want to experience, and we have it because we make up a million stories of why this is going to be uncomfortable, this is not going to happen, this is impossible. You know that whole thing. Do we all, anyone have any of that? Or am I the only one?
No, yeah, the only one.
And then just do it. Focus on it and then just do it. And so it is.